Hello and welcome to Unsourced Wall. My name is Elvis, and as always, I'm your host. Okay, so this is going to be kind of a short one, mainly because there's not that much news this week. Obviously, we have something like the announcement that the DC Universe app and HBO Max are looking for making their own smaller budget DC movies, including one that might be the Green Lantern movie being written by Jeff Johns and is being looked at by Bad Robot, but nothing set in stone, and so it's pretty much just what we have to go on right now. And honestly, that's pretty much it. It was a pretty slow news week, so let's just hop right into what I read this week and get this rolling. First things up, we have Fantastic Four Grand Design number 2. While I love the first half of its two-part story, recap, nostalgic retelling of the golden years for the Fantastic Four, I have to say that this back half is where things really started to show the cracks and seams. The first issue, like I mentioned last month, was this incredibly well put together mess, like in the best way possible. It was a hazy, unfocused jumble, but it had enough energy, humor, and heart to give it qualities almost like a mosaic. Sure, jagged at each cut and pasted edge, but something strong with vision that put it all together. This issue doesn't really have that. It feels too disparate. It comes across as being less motivated by any one part of the Lee Kirby run than just by getting through what it has left to do. It's telling that what works best about this issue is less the Fantastic Four's history, but rather what new angles and contributions Scioli is bringing to this. There's enough imagination and clever ingenuity within solitary panels and pages for a full-on miniseries, if not an outright ongoing. And it's a shame to see those ideas and flourishes get crammed and crushed by everything else around it. There's no briefing room for them in this. And while that is the point, it's not really entertaining as a collection of sporadic events either. Scioli is a master, and there are such great solitary moments in this, but not much else. I still recommend it if you love his cartooning and humor, which are spot on and got so many laughs out of me. But when put together as a whole, Fantastic Four Grand Design, Parts 1 and 2, come up a little short. I'm definitely glad that these two issues exist, but overall, it's not something that I can wholeheartedly recommend as a story or as something that is going to stand the test of time. I think it's going to be very much a niche thing, and that is a shame because there was so much effort put into this on so many levels, and it kind of whimpered out at the end. Overall, one thumb up, one thumb middle. Next up, we have Batman Creature of the Night number 4. Just to get out of the way, overall, I find Creature of the Night to have been such an impressive, incredibly unforgettable companion piece to Superman Secret Identity. In terms of the taut storyline, the succinct and hefty dramatic and emotional beats, the tone that rides the line of magic realism almost all the way through, it's almost like a masterpiece. This final issue where it gets a bit shaky, however. What made this mini so unique and enrapturing was kind of lost a bit in this final stretch, with scenes and sequences that come off a bit too open and illuminated. What carried the intensity and engrossing nature of the previous 3 issues, that tightrope between Bruce's emotional state and psyche, comes off a bit too stark and clear now that everything has been put out in the open. It's just harder to really delve into when the curtain has been pulled all the way back and we can see everything in the light of day. And it's a shame, but it's not enough to deter me wholesale from what I feel Busek and Leon were able to achieve here. I guess it's similar enough to Secret Identity, where it kind of throws away the preconceived notions of the tonal arc of the story for something more direct and overt, but it just doesn't jive with me. At the very least, it's not as blunt as Secret Identity did it, and the final pages of this story carries so much more nuance and ambiguity, and just, it's kind of like the Babadook, but like in a really coherent way. Like, it nails that same exact kind of theme, but it does it so much better, and it does it in a way that leaves it a little bit more open to atmospheric interpretation. I loved it, really, I did. As a complete story, this has to be going down as one of the greats. It's pinpointedly perfect in the skill of crafting characters that are striving and in strife, littered with macrocosms of two people at the height of their powers and in their prime, because they still are, and this is just a smorgasbord of delightful and intensely talented work here. So if nothing else, it's gonna stand the test of time, and I have no doubt about that. If Secret Identity can, then this one surely will too. So overall, despite my misgivings, 2 thumbs up. Moving ahead, we have John Constantine, Hellblazer number 1, and this was a perfect start to the ongoing. Well, last month's prologue one-shot was perfect, but this issue sets up a more grounded, visceral, toothed tone and energy that is deliciously delirious to dive right into, because that's what this issue feels like. Just diving into some sort of abyss. Spurrier doesn't really hold back, giving John and his brave new London setting he's been dropped into such cynical and unforgiving dynamics and set pieces. Amazingly counterpointed by Aaron Campbell and Jordi Belaire's art and colors. All 3 of them delight and indulge in making this a gruesome book on multiple levels than just the superficial, or visual even, by just letting John as a character work through his element. So you go from gags about guys with cursed facial warts to sadistic occultists that's speak impenetrable British slang to actual stakes and horrifying consequences. But the tone, and Constantine as the embodiment of the tone, keep it afloat, giving it stability while being on the precipice himself. It's a melange for sure, and one in the classic Spurrier tradition, where he's just honestly branching off so many different things, tonally, aesthetically, and honestly, narratively, but giving it a sturdy grouping and structure. I just hope that he can manage not to fall into his classic pitfalls, because that has me worried and excited at the same time. The month where I feel like I don't need to be cautious about that is going to be a good month. So overall, solid start, and helps to buttress the notion that maybe Hellblazer is back as a series, as a comic, and as an institution. Overall, 2 thumbs up. And lastly, we have Martian Manhunter number 10. I feel like with the last couple issues, there have been a lot of repetitive elements at play. So if this one's a bit short compared to the others, that's mainly why. Because we're still just following Diane and John through their mind-bending journey through the mental scape. And again, Rossmo's the heavyweight on this. Just creating awesome action designs, and in terms of just how they're constructed and how they flow, the actual pages themselves, they all entangle with each other, and it's amazing. But at the end of the day, that's kind of it. It's been 2 or so issues of making the same kind of subtextual character stuff actual text, and without Rossmo, that stuff wouldn't work as much as it does, because it works amazingly, and that is definitely mostly on how Rossmo is able to adapt that stuff to, well, something that reads like a comic, but is actually really macromanagely skillful at making something so intricate, and I love it. I think that Rossmo is definitely a shoo-in for an Eisner if he doesn't win for this book, and for the pages, and for the intense effort that's put into it by him, then that is a travesty, because seriously, this is some career-defining magnum opus style work here, and I cannot give it more love than that. But to get back on track, I do think that it has been sort of mulling over the same sort of beats again and again, but I feel like this issue at least brings it home with one of the best, most exacting, and outright beautiful portrayals of John as a Beat in itself, with him being put in this portrait, half a page, just staring straight at the reader in his most emaciated and alien-like form. It's defenseless, it's so naked and raw, and it makes the whole thing worthwhile, because with only just 2 issues left, we're being given this small moment that is so emboldening and heartening, and it speaks such a great character truth about John, about his world, about everything that makes him who he is, and it really makes it land. It makes it such a definite and special and unique little beat, both for Lando and Rossmo. I know I gave Rossmo a lot of the credit here, but that one moment is both of them combined, and it is truly special. And so I'm so glad that we're getting stuff like that so close to the end, because there's only 2 issues left, and at this point in the game, this story needs to feel like it's been making some sort of statement, and that one is the statement. So I hope that the last 2 issues bring it all home, because I won't lie, it's kind of an uphill battle. Overall, 1 thumb up, 1 thumb middle, but I cannot wait to see where this all wraps up. Anyway, that's it for what I read this week. Now we can move on to what I watched this week, and this one is going to be extra short. There's only one thing, and that is Watchmen episode 6, This Extraordinary Being. And this is going to be a short one too, because honestly, you could take what I said about last week's episode about the Looking Glass and copy and paste it word for word here, because they are great for the exact same reasons, where we have a character who we understand, who we empathize with, who we start to know more about, and that we see them become more and more embedded and immersed into this world, and we are following them on this journey, making strides through their own little narrative that they are making progress through, that we understand, that we are following through them, that we are clouded with them, that we are confused with them, that we are thrilled with them, and that we are emboldened with them. Like, we are truly following this character on a journey, not only in the plot, but also in terms of emotional weight too. Just like Looking Glass's episode, and just like most of this series has been missing. And so I really liked this one. I thought that it was great. I think that much like last week's episode, this one would have been great in solitary too. Like, they tell the complete story. And I'm kind of sad, at the very least, this is going to be like the last episode of this kind, but I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was well done, it was exciting, it was thrilling, and it was honestly pretty tragic. It hit those tragic beats perfectly. And it's kind of a shame, because again, we're getting a lot of bad faith takes on it. We're getting a lot of people who are missing the point, perhaps even deliberately, because you have to be watching this show blindfolded and with earmuffs on to not understand what's going on here. The really blunt and in-your-face messages. And the message here is that you can have right and you can have wrong, but there are things that when you are a hero in a situation in a world that is more realistic than not, I'm putting that in air quotes, that there are methods that you go through that might not actually be very heroic. And I think that Lindelof is really trying hard to hammer that home to the point where it's like really kind of works against itself, but it doesn't work against itself in a way where people can say this episode is advocating for a race war or something like that, which is ridiculous. Because like, how can you watch an episode where a guy kind of loses himself fighting the monsters, looking into the abyss, looking into like the void in his quest for like revenge and anger, and losing himself to his own sort of inner demons, as advocating for a race war? Like, are you blind and stupid? And that's my main take on this episode, is that it tells such a succinct and incredibly like overt character piece, but that's what I love about it, because you understand what's going on in a way that is truly cathartic, because you can see all the notches that led them on this journey. Like, you were able to fully appreciate the tragedy here. People walk away saying, oh, he was black and he was a cop and he killed Ku Klux Klan members, so that means that every white guy must die. That's not what this episode is saying at all, and you have to be deliberately just so moronic to think that. But overall, I had a lot of fun this episode. I really am feeling like I don't care about the main plot anymore. After 2 episodes that are just about character pieces, about side characters, experiencing hardship and their own sort of mental states and their own character arcs, then I don't really much care about the seasonal arc. The seasonal arc kind of bores me in comparison. So I hope the last 3 episodes are able to bring it home and are able to land on their feet, because it's going to have to. I feel like we've been spoiled by 2 fantastic episodes and then a middling seasonal arc. Hope I'm wrong. Hope it turns out to be great, but fingers crossed. Overall, for this episode, 2 thumbs up. And there's no listener question this week, so I just want to say thank you so much to everyone out there who's ever sent in a question, comment, or topic. It means so much to me, and I'm so grateful. So thank you so much for everything you've done. It's truly amazing, and I'm just so appreciative of it. And I just want to say, if anyone out there has their own questions, comment, or topic they want to hear discussed on the show, you can always find me on Twitter at THE_SNICKMAN. I want to give a shout out to the cover artists for the show at DOTEMCEE. Please check them out. They're amazing. And thank you so much for listening. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Hope you have a great week, and see you again next time.